It's been called the mother of all blackouts, a cyber Pearl Harbor, and an unprecedented catastrophe. The Great Blackout. What happens if the internet shuts down worldwide? It was only a matter of time before this disaster movie scenario became a reality, and when it did, it would be catastrophic. But thankfully, we're not yet living in a real-world version of the road where people are forced to cook roadkill over open fires in a desperate struggle to survive. Although recent outages do make us wonder, are we getting close? In October of 2021, Facebook went down for 6 hours, Instagram for a whole day, WhatsApp went down for 3 days. But thankfully, the rest of the internet remained online. However, Facebook did warn about this months earlier. It's telling its employees to prepare for a worst-case scenario, aka a total global internet blackout. So, was that warning just a cry wolf moment or a test run for the real thing? In this video, we're going to take a look at what really happened to Facebook in October. Then we'll dig into what would happen if the internet went down completely, from gridlock and panic buying to riots and war. First, let's address the elephant in the room. 6 hours isn't exactly forever. Some of us may have had trouble updating our Tinder profiles, but for the most part, life went on without much disruption. However, the outage did cause an estimated $60 million in losses for businesses alone, with many more millions in lost productivity. So, even though it didn't last long, it still packed a serious punch. So why did Facebook go down? Well, according to the company itself, there was a faulty configuration change on their infrastructure, which impacted how servers communicate across the Facebook data center network. Now, we don't know any more details than that because Facebook hasn't shared them, but industry insiders have some theories. Facebook has grown so quickly over the past few years that they had to get very creative with how they store and move data. One major issue is how to handle DNS queries, essentially translating human-readable web addresses like YouTube, into IP addresses that computers can understand. Most companies will contract out this function to a third party. Facebook is so massive that they handle it all in-house. It's taking control over every millisecond it takes to load one of their platforms. That control comes with risks. However, when Facebook makes changes to their DNS system, they need to roll them out extremely carefully. One wrong move could theoretically cascade across their massive systems, causing a domino effect that knocks everything offline. And that's likely what happened, right? What if it wasn't an accident? In 2019, Facebook shut down for 14 hours due to a server problem. Coincidentally, that outage cost the company a whopping $9 billion, making it one of the most expensive technology outages in history. Some conspiracy theorists believe that these incidents aren't accidents, but planned blackouts designed to scare the public into accepting Facebook's Libra cryptocurrency. But that theory has some major holes in it. If Facebook was going to use a blackout to push their crypto agenda, why would they spend billions of dollars fixing the problems afterwards? Instead, they should just leave users in the dark and use the confusion to make their announcements. Ultimately, it's far more likely that these outages were simply the result of growing pains and poor planning, rather than a sinister plot. Now, let's take a step back and consider the bigger picture. Facebook has 3 billion monthly active users. If it went down permanently, the world would definitely notice, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. People would find other social media platforms to use, and life would eventually go back to normal. Now, imagine if the entire internet went down permanently. That would be a very different story. For starters, there would be widespread gridlock, with traffic lights knocked offline. Drivers would be forced to navigate the streets on foot, leading to gridlock and countless fender benders. Even worse, airplanes would be grounded worldwide, leading to total chaos in the skies. Airports would descend into bedlam as panicked passengers demanded to be let out, because air traffic controllers would be unable to guide them. Planes would be forced to land wherever they had fuel left, turning highways and parking lots into impromptu runways. The scene would be straight out of a Tom Clancy novel. After the initial shock wore off, panic buying would ensue. Without the ability to check inventory online, shoppers would descend on supermarkets and other retailers in a desperate attempt to stock up on supplies that would lead to empty shelves and bare freezers within hours, forcing people to turn to less savory means of feeding themselves. Unfortunately, looting would likely become widespread. Store security cameras would be ripped down and alarm systems disabled as thieves descended on shopping districts. Some desperate people would resort to hunting wild animals for food, while others would raid farms, leading to potential confrontations with heavily armed farmers. It's not out of the question. In 2011, a group of hackers in North Korea caused the country's government to collapse by knocking out their computer systems. When the people learned that their leader had died, they descended into chaos and rioted, killing dozens of high-ranking officials. Without the internet, North Korea could easily descend into anarchy. It wouldn't just be civilians caught up in the carnage either. As military networks went down, soldiers would be forced to rely on old-fashioned pen and paper. Communications would break down and front lines would descend into chaos. Someone might mistakenly attack another friendly unit, thinking they were the enemy, sparking a full-blown war. With supply trucks unable to navigate roads and contact their superiors, they'd be forced to retreat into the woods. This would be especially dangerous for special forces who operate deep behind enemy lines. They would have no way of calling in air support or resupplies, leaving them stranded and defenseless. Many of them would likely be captured and executed. With the U.S. military entangled in multiple ongoing conflicts in places like Syria and Afghanistan, the consequences could be catastrophic. We could see entire platoons wiped out due to miscommunication or friendly fire. And with Russia and China itching for a fight, the window for World War III would be wide open. Of course, it's unlikely that things would get that bad. Most of the scenarios above are based on the internet staying down indefinitely. But if it was only down for a few weeks or months, we could avoid much of the bloodshed. Still, it would cause massive devastation. Even if you avoided violence, you'd likely face economic ruin. With the stock market closed and trading halted, investors will lose billions of dollars in a matter of minutes. Banks would immediately go into lockdown, refusing to allow anyone to withdraw their money until order was restored. Businesses would grind to a halt, and people would be forced to start carrying cash around again. Gas stations would quickly run out of the credit card swiping machines, forcing people to wait in line and carry around jugs of gas. While ATMs would likely work for a few days, banks would soon run out of cash, and people would be forced to carry around wheelbarrows of money for basic goods and services. We'd essentially be thrust back into the 1800s. This would be especially devastating for the developing world. Countries like Kenya and Nigeria have made huge strides in recent years by adopting mobile payment systems. Disruptions like this can set them back years and cause untold suffering. Millions of people who rely on government aid would be left without food and water, leading to starvation and dehydration. Panicked citizens would likely flee the country, leading to a refugee crisis of unprecedented proportions. Border security would quickly be overwhelmed, and no nation would want to take in refugees from countries ravaged by disease and famine. And those are just the beginning of the problems. Even if the internet only went down for a few months, we'd never be quite the same again. Now watch. Worst ways humanity could end, or check out. Why does the government want you to be a zombie?